Here with I see Kaylin's here too. She just popped up a photo.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
okay, I guess it's taking time for stuff to move over.
yeah. She's here. I think she's on mute on her end.
Okay, the recordings.
The recording has started, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the July 20th, 2022 special meeting of the Electrical Work Examining Board. For the purpose of the meeting today, I'd like to identify all the board members that are here and also others that are attending. From the board, of course, myself as chairman. Peter Jennings, would you acknowledge your attendance, and other board members as I read you?
Peter Jennings. Good morning.
Good morning. Richard Byrd.
Rich Bird.
John Youssef. John Youssef. Your audio on?
We can see him.
I see him.
I don't think he can hear us.
Can you, John? I don't see him now. Let me come back to him. Paul Costello, good morning.
Present. Good morning.
Chris Brown, morning.
Morning. Present.
And Jackie Laramie has not joined us yet and may not be. She had a conflict, wasn't sure about the timing. Back to John Youssef. John, are you there? Are you there? Actually, I don't see him. It looks like he hopped off. He's probably going to call back in. Okay. I see we have Janita Hamill here. Just acknowledge for the record. Janita. Okay. Pamela Brown.
Pamela Brown, Director of Investigations.
Thank you. Shamika Gross. Sorry to murder your name.
Good morning, Shamika Gross here from DCP.
Todd Birch.
Todd Birch, State Apprenticeship Director.
Paul Grabowski.
Morning, Paul Grabowski, Staff Attorney, Department of Consumer Protection.
Robert Kennedy.
Good morning, Robert Kennedy, COO, Mauritano Sign Group.
Sign Pro Conference Room, identify.
Pete Rapocchio, President of Sign Pro.
Kaylin Privy.
Callan Prieb here at Robinson and Cole.
Okay, sorry about the mispronunciations. I don't see John Youssef back here, so Janita Hamill, are you with us? I know she was going to be listening in, so she may be on another discussion, but Janita Hamill from Department of Consumer Protection is also here. Anybody I missed that's here? Russ Hassman.
Russ Hassman, President and CEO, National Sign Corporation.
Okay, is there anyone else? Sign Pro Conference Room has their hand up, I see. I'm sorry, that was me. Okay. All right. The purpose of today's meeting is to discuss the C8 journey person's requirements to obtain a license. State of Connecticut. I think everybody realizes that C8 is a limited license. It's limited to signs, electric signs. Everybody should have probably reviewed and received a draft copy of I'm going to call it a proposal for the time being. I kind of put together here relative to sign apprenticeship training. Does everybody have that? It's labeled Connecticut trainee / apprentice electric science C8 on the job training and related instruction draft copy 620 of 22.
Mr. Chairman, I do not have a copy of that.
So sorry about that. Let me see. Karen, could you forward a copy over to Todd?
Yes, I will. I'll email it to Todd right now. Yep.
Sorry, I missed that, Todd. In the past, the C8 license, apprenticeship requirements were never totally established, and they were kind of handled in-house at DCP. And it's one of the license categories, the only electrical license category that we found at this point that didn't have any formality to it as far as what was required coming from the board as far as training goes. So also in the past, directors of apprenticeship prior to Todd had indicated they really didn't want to support or offer the C8 limited license because it was so limited. However, in discussions with Todd Birch from the OL apprenticeship, this is something that my understanding is he is willing to entertain and offer. And we can conclude on that part after we're done reviewing these items. Our objective here from the board standpoint and the state's standpoint is to try to establish these requirements and have them posted and to go into effect in September. Okay. As I said before, in the past, this was handled in-house based on information was submitted. There was no consistency to it. There was some consistency, but it wasn't the right way to do it. So as we've been trying to clean things up, this is one of the items. So Todd, have you received that document yet?
Yes, I just did. I'm viewing it right now.
Okay, so I'm going to go through that document, and as it's marked draft copy, just for review purposes, and we've asked the three sign companies to join us for input, as we usually do with any license in any category, when we're making changes or updating things for requirements. As you look at this document, right now the recommendation is that putting out in front of us is for the minimum on-the-job training hours to be 2,000 hours. Okay, that's on-the-job, hands-on work with the minimum related instruction or classroom time of 144 hours. Okay. What I'd like to do is go through this entirely first, and then I'll take some comments from the board, and then also from everybody else on this call. So, although this says related instruction can be obtained from the Connecticut Electrical Work Examining Board pre-approved online courses or pre-approved live classroom instruction from state or private schools. That was put in there prior to discussions with Todd Birch and putting this up as an additional offering of apprenticeship. Indicate here that on-the-job training credit will be given for UL listed fabrication shop experience not exceeding 500 hours. Because many of these, many of these signs are made in UL in approved facilities, and therefore they follow the UL guidelines. For related instruction, we're talking about basic math computations or calculations, blueprint reading, electrical theory, the basic knowledge of the statutes and regulations on licensure, apprenticeship, building codes and standards, okay? Relative to the code, the basic math, most people will have that coming out of high school as a graduate. Blueprint reading, not necessarily, okay? And of course, electric theory and then statutes. From a code standpoint, from the National Electrical Code, areas as they relate to sign wiring, and it would be the currently adopted Connecticut version of the code. Today, as we speak, it's 2017. Hopefully, come October, it'll be the 2020. Chapter 1 is a general chapter with general information on it, and there are applicable sections in there that do apply to signs either directly or indirectly. Chapter 2, wiring and protection, same thing. There's applicable areas for signs. Chapter 3, wiring methods and materials. Again, those are applicable sections in there, not the entire chapter is for signs, obviously. Chapter 4, equipment for general use, there's applicable sections in that area. Chapter 6 is the entire chapter, which is dedicated to electric signs and outline lighting. And then chapter 7 are special conditions. Again, there's applicable sections there. It's not my intent to go over those applicable sections. They do exist. I've looked at every one of them, and there is something in each one of them. From an OSHA standpoint, personal safety for electric sign installer and service personnel would be an OSHA 30 class, which would cover eye protection. The numbers to the right, the 1926s.102, those are the areas and sections that apply. It'd be eye protection, head protection, hearing protection, clothes or hand protection, shoes, foot protection, manual lifting, respiratory protection, lockout and tackout protection, fall protection just for personnel from things such as ladders. Fall protection is also relative to lanyards and lifelines when you're doing some hoisting and things of that nature, and ladder safety. Equipment safety for the electric sign installer would be sign installation, wiring, footing, and attachment engineering review. I know we're going to talk about that one in a little bit more detail for sure. Mechanical attachments and fasteners, excavation and concrete calculations, welding procedures, crane operation training and crane safety, rigor signal training, NFPA 70E safety training. There are 5 references. Excuse me. There are 5 reference materials that I listed here: the National Electrical Code Handbook, which would be the current edition, adopted by Connecticut. Code of Federal Regulations, as it relates to OSHA, engineering sign structures. Well, 2161 neon transformers and power supplies. And UL 48 electric signs, underwriter laboratories. Now, as an example, I've mentioned under equipment safety, you know, the sign installation of footings, okay, and concrete in fasteners, okay. Well, those aren't really electrical items per se, okay. The situation could exist where sign contractor is required to put a footing in, has a contract for everything relative to the sign, including footings and rebar and structural aspects of it, okay? And in that case, they would be required to seek out an engineer and have that engineer. There are situations where signs are not electrified, okay? But it could still be a structural piece. It could be a pylon type sign that's not electrified for some reason. Or a lower freestanding sign. In any event, the only thing that we are looking at here, as far as I'm concerned, is those signs that are electrified. The sign is not electrified. That falls under a structural component of the overall facility, and that would typically be designed by an engineer and submitted to the town for approval based on my past experience with those. And be kind of part of the building permit application, possibly if somebody was buying a pre-made sign somewhere. So non-electric signs at this point is not something that we need to be looking at right now. I know I've had some discussions with people about that. And although there's obviously concern, it's not something that we as an electrical work examining board would have any jurisdiction over. That would be under the state building official's office, as far as I'm concerned. And I'll ask Paul Costello, who's on the Codes and Standards Committee here in the state as well, if he agrees with that statement relative to non-electrical signs.
I agree, Larry. Yeah, I think that would be true statement. That it would just pertain to the electrical portion of the signs. For
If you look at the state building code, there is some areas there as it pertains to signage. As far as attachments and fasteners, that is something that with an electric sign, we would want to be very concerned about. So there's proper fastening. So that obviously the sign doesn't fall off the side of the building. And that has happened in cases. So the proper anchorage is needed. Typically, for anybody that's not familiar with some of our codes, okay, in an E1 or E2 contractor and journey person typically brings a dedicated circuit to the sign location for future connection by the sign contractor. That's part of the building electrical installation. sign contractors, C7, C8s, are not by law able to run any circuits back to any panels or anything there to connect to an existing outlet that's provided to them by the E1, E2, okay, whether it's a new construction or old construction. They cannot run that wiring within the building. Okay. Okay. So as we look through this sheet that's in front of everybody, there's a lot of information here. 144 hours seems pretty tight to me, and I'm not so sure that wasn't one of my original objectives, but I'm not so sure that that's a reachable objective. So I would like to just open this up to a little discussion from the board standpoint. And then I'd like to get input from other panelists that are here, other people here. So anybody like to start, just raise your hand on the electric from the board standpoint. Rich Bird.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think I agree with you on the minimal related instruction that the 144 hours is probably a little light for looking at what the curriculum is here, especially including the OSHA 30, chapters 1 through 7, the applicable sections. It probably would be more achievable to probably be in that 180 hour range, which would follow right along with the typical training for your E1 and E2 licenses at 180 hours a year. Just a thought.
Okay. Any other board members? Paul?
Yeah, excuse me, I agree with Rich. Just looking over the outline, maybe chapter 5 as well. Thinking like amusement parks for signage, dealing with special occupancies possibly. And then question, and I'm not as familiar with the operation of the sign itself, chapter 8, are any of these controlled with some of the cabling methods that we would see in chapter 8, I would think, as well as some of the tables in chapter 9. So it's almost really the entire NEC, I'm thinking. And then the other one I was looking at was with the OSHA. Would it actually, and I'm kind of torn, is it a 1910 or is it a 1926 installation that we're looking at?
Previously, when this was put together originally back in 2014, it was the 1926, basically 1926, but sometimes it's 1910 as well.
Yeah.
Again, that's the reason why we're here today. Let's try to develop the document and make it clean.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, I think there's a lot of overlap because a lot of the time will be manufactured and under the UL listing within the facility itself. So I could see where the 1910 standard would come in. And really, as far as construction side, at that point of the installation, a lot of the signs I think are on existing buildings. So I kind of look at it more of a 1910 standard reference there. And then in addition to all the mandatory sections that would be required for either 1910 or 1930 for OSHA. And under the equipment and safety, maybe bucket truck safety as well. And maybe Rich might be a little more familiar with what might be needed with that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
Great
Mr.
operation.
Costello, I do agree with you, Paul. Definitely on some sort of bucket truck safety in there.
Yep.
Aerial.
Aerial, yeah, and aerial, yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
aerial lifts, aerial.
Paul, I also agree with you on, as far as the chapter 5 and chapter 8, and probably, the chapter 9 in the tables, a lot of information in there that we could use. And I know, a lot of signs, they have, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they do have the ability today to, to communicate through some sort of networking system. So I do agree with you on that as far as chapter 8 with communications.
Okay. Peter Jennings, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I concur with Rich and Paul on the 180 hours. I think that keeps things more consistent for for the apprenticeship portion of it. And as far as the OSHA, yeah, it's definitely it's whichever one's going to be more applicable, 1926 or the 1910. But definitely have the OSHA 30 in there.
Okay.
Yeah, I do agree with both Paul and Mr. Jennings in regards to the OSHA 30, probably the OSHA 30 general industry 1910.
Any other board members? Peter, you still got something? Your hand's up, I see.
No, sorry about that, Mr. Chair.
John Usa.
Just a question. What is the typical current ranges that these signs are using out there? They just put up a bunch of really beautiful signs between Wallingford and Meriden, and they're termed loosely electronic billboards of everything. And the question is, what's the total current that these things are using, that these guys are working with? Anybody have what the ranges may be?
I don't, but I see the sign people all basically have their hands up with that answer, I think, but we'll get that for you, John.
Okay.
Second. Any other thing, John?
Not at the moment, thank you.
Okay. So each of the board members has had an opportunity to say something here initially, then we'll discuss this a little further. So, Todd, do you want to make any comments at this point?
Sure. The 144 hours, let me make a clarification of that. That is a federal guideline. Federal CFR 2929 states that registered apprenticeship is recommended no less than 144 hours. So let's clarify that. I think changing the language to say minimum related instruction shall be no less, minimum related instruction is recommended no less than 144 hours, but Connecticut industry requires additional hours. Whatever you guys want to do is fine. That's a clarification. Again, it's a federal guideline that I have to put in apprenticeship programs. Well, no, there's not a single, and we've had these conversations before, there's not a single class out there offering for any of the occupations that are less than probably 200 hours, 180, 200 hours. There's no question about that. We've had these conversations before. That would, there's no way you're going to learn any of this stuff in that. The reason being why that number 144 is set by the federal regulation is if an individual is in a 4-hour class, that's 36 classes. That's equivalent to 1 year of college. It's plain and simple. That's been in there for a very, very long time. I have to put that in as a federal requirement because I'm federally authorized to operate in the state of Connecticut. We all know if you wish to put that caveat that a related instruction is recommended no less than 144 hours, but must meet Connecticut's C8 standard of the industry. I think that is completely appropriate because you're all going to have different programs. You have IEC, you have the Voltec system, you have all the privates, so on and so forth. Private organizations as well that are going to be offering. They're going to be scattered over through the board, which I have no jurisdiction over. which is fine, but they're all going to be well above and beyond 144 hours. We can also know that. So again, my suggestion is to have minimum related instruction recommended no less than 144 hours, but must meet Connecticut's C8 electrical equivalencies. Because again, you've already stated all of the bells and whistles you want in the curriculum. You're all going to teach it differently, but it's all going to be around the same core. So that's my first recommendation. The second recommendation, you cannot mandate a OSHA 30 for registered.
Correct.
You can mandate an OSHA 10 and suggest an OSHA 30, but you cannot mandate that.
Correct.
Other than that, it's pretty decent work so far. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman, at this time.
Okay, well, that's good. I appreciate that input, Todd. And that's definitely helpful. Let's see. I want to take, I'm going to ask a couple of sign people for their comments. First, to try to answer John Eustace's question that he had a minute ago relative to the billboard type signs and so forth. Russ Hassman, can you address that?
Absolutely. So John,
Just identify what company you're with again.
I'm Russ Hassman from National Sign.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
John, if you're referring to the LED board for Hartford Healthcare up on the hill right off of 84, my company actually installed that sign. And I don't the primary electric was brought to the site. I do not know how many. I mean, it's either going to be a 240 or a 120 circuit, depending on how the site electrician brought the power out there. So it's primary into the board, and then everything runs on low voltage after that. So, there's power supplies in the sign, but that's an LED board, and it's running primary feed, probably 240, just to get the voltage out to the sign. I don't know how many circuits there are. I can certainly look back in the file and get back to you on that. But it most likely a 240 feed, with a varying number of circuits depending on the load of the equipment.
Okay. You get that, John?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Russ, as long as I've got you up there, I know you had your hand up before that question, so would you like to add some comments in here, obviously?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would like to thank the board. Just a little bit of the history of the C7 and C8 license. I've been in this industry for almost 35 years. And the evolution of the license really dates back probably starting in the early 1990s. We recognized that as an industry, the state statute was that we had to be an E1 or E2. In order to install electrical devices or equipment, you had to be an E1 or E2. So we were an industry that was working with signage that we were, we had the knowledge, but we didn't have the credentials. And then, back in the day, I felt that, the E1 and E2s really never received proper training on the equipment that we operate, neon was the real issue. A lot of building fires, if properly installed, working at 15,000 volt, high voltage, low amperage, working at 15,000 volts and 30 or 60 milliamp. So along with some of my my peers, Mike Loretano, Lauren Rosen from Artifacts, John DiTullio from Signlight in North Haven, and others, we banded together through the Connecticut Sign Association, which was active at that time, to petition the state to write some language and develop the C7 and C8 license. So it was about 12 years and 3 governors. We finally got it through. DCP, Rich Holbert has been a terrific partner. I was sorry to see him retire recently, but Rich Holbert has been our advocate and partner in this effort, for quite a while. License was adopted, I think, in 2005, 2006. And And then, a CE requirement went into that, and, recognizing that there wasn't an industry-specific CE class, along with my industry peers, we put together a CE class, which we have been running since 2006. Specifically around the electrical portion of our license, but not, and also the safety attributes, the structural engineering things that our people have to do, welding certifications, PPE instruction, and that class has been very successful. Obviously, like everything else through COVID, we hit a couple of bumps in training. And then my long-term training partner, Randy Wright, retired. He was, coming up from Pennsylvania. And then most recently, we've been working with Tunxus Community College to help put that together. And I have been in contact with Victor on putting together, a more industry-specific class as we move into the future CE requirements. And I'm sensing that he will also probably be involved in this classroom requirement, whatever time that may be. Addressing the 1910 and 1926 on the OSHA, because of our skill set that we use for our business, and I understand the questions around, whether or not, we have a much broader responsibility than just the electrical portion, as was stated in the conversation and questions that were asked. But we do find ourselves weaving in and out of 1910 and 1926 because of the responsibilities that we have as sign professionals. And I know that Rob Kennedy, who's also on the call, is as well or more versed in the OSHA stuff, and I'll certainly give him an opportunity to address that. But I would recommend, because of the scope of work that we are doing, that we do have a hybrid of 1910 and 1926 based on the skills that we have and need to successfully and safely do the work that we perform. Let's see. Okay, I think that's really all I have. I, again, just want to thank the board for, this is something that I've been thinking about for a long time, especially Todd Birch. Todd, if I had met you 10 years ago, we probably would already have this in place. It's something that's been on my to-do list for many years. And I'm very excited to finally get some traction on this. But I do want to say, though, it has been, and I believe will continue to be very important to the industry, that we address all the electrical related instruction as well as all the safety instruction that we have, to make sure that our license holders have all of the skills that they need to do the job that the jobs that we do professionally and safely. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Russ, for your comments. Pete?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Pete Rapocchio from Sign Pro. Thank you to the board again. As Russ has mentioned, we really appreciate your time, your effort, and getting this out in front of everyone. It means a lot. We have 77 full-time employees here. 13 installers full-time on the road, and we take the proactive measure. All of our staff, including anyone that works in the warehouse or in the fab shop, is UL. By protocol of UL, as far as the shop is UL. We have them all in composite shoes that we buy for them. We all have outside training. We have tool talks every month. As required with the state of Connecticut jobs, once we're out in the field, whether it's railroad, whether it's healthcare, university work, so on and so forth. And then we have OSHA 10 at a minimum here. So proactively we do it, although it's not required for the people in the shop. We want them to be safe. So, and again, this C8 situation is making the situation safe. To get back to the electrical, most of our electrical is between 110 volt and 277 volt as far as a multi-tap power supply, but we're seeing neon is coming back as well. And again, that's dealing with, high voltage. So it's very safe thing that people are licensed, people are educated, not only to protect the actual installer, but to protect the homeowner, the business holder, tenant, as well as the property owner. We've seen a lot of fires in the past. We've seen a lot of things, but to get back to the chair's first question, I have a question. Who previously handled this as far as the state? Because you had mentioned that you wanted it changed on how it was handled.
Well, yeah, previously the applications would go into the state. They would go through a procedure where Rich Hurlbert actually did the review on them. Occasionally, if there was a question, it would go before the electrical board.
Okay, so
with Rich retiring, the requirements and the procedures are changing as well.
right. So again, which caught us off guard. We took our continuing education course, and as everyone here has known, it's the electrical. And then all of a sudden, we were handed some questions, and 6 out of the 10 questions were all about crane safety, sling load, weight load, crane issues. So I obviously questioned it and said, we're here for continuing ed. Why all the crane safety courses? And again, I totally understand that the C8 should be for sign installation. The question is, and it was brought up earlier, that it's strictly about electrical. But if we think about this, if a sign falls off the building, okay, because it's not anchored correctly, it doesn't matter if it's electrical or non-electrical, it may kill someone. So when the state of Connecticut says, well, a C7, C8 can wire it, and so can a E1 or E2 to pull a permit, the question is then, is the E1 and E2 have the same classifications as a C8 and a C7 as far as all the crane rigging and all of that? Because if they go to a municipality, a E1 or E2 can list their name on a permit because that's a requirement, but they have no idea of footing, foundations, anchor, engineering, so on and so forth, but they're able to pull the permit. So I think my question really is, first of all, and most importantly, is the town and municipalities required to follow the state laws? Because the state laws are being mentioned here, and we as sign industry and sign installers that hold these licenses, we need to know that the municipalities are required to follow state law.
Let me try to answer that without really providing an opinion or an answer from the board, because that's outside of our jurisdiction, if you will, or our responsibilities.
Well, but can I,
from a personal standpoint, okay, as a contractor for too many years, my understanding is that, yes, all towns follow the state building code that's approved and adopted by the state of Connecticut. Relative to whether people take out permits, whether they do the job right, whether they are licensed and whatnot, and the enforcement, that's not something that the board directly does. So that falls on a local facility, local town. Obviously, DCP has inspectors out there inspecting for licenses and what have you, and they do their job accordingly and what they're able to do. But the question is of relative to the building departments in each individual town, municipality. That's something I'm not going to sit here and comment directly on, say, yes, it has to be, or no, it doesn't have to be.
That's not the question. Honestly, no disrespect, but that's not the question. We're all sitting on this board. We're all sitting on this call. Everyone's spending their time to do this correctly. We are in the sign industry, and we are obligated by the panel here and the new criteria as legitimate business owners, okay, to come out and have 2,000 hours moving forward of time, 144 hours of training, if that does all go through, that we pay our staff to do. Because we're required to do it as real business owners and license holders of the state of Connecticut. So we need to understand, or I need to understand, that it is a state law and the town municipalities must follow the state law. It's not an opinion. It's an honest truth state law. So if I have to hold a state law by holding a state requirement, that means that the town should rely on the same, because at that point, I can't have DCP out there if the local municipality says, well, don't worry about the state law, this is my town. But then the question is that do I really need a state license if I only do business in certain towns? No, because the state of Connecticut says I must have this law. I must put my 11 or 17 installers through it. I must pay for it. I must do this and I must do that. But the guy who doesn't hold a license has no violations. So the question is if you do business in any town in the state of Connecticut, must you follow the state law? It's not an opinion. It's strictly a state law. And I need to understand that the board is going to follow that or enforce it with the municipalities.
Paul Grabowski.
Yeah, so I would just say this. We've been over this at regular board meetings recently. I know it was on the agenda last time we met. I believe the board even made a resolution. So, you know, we're going over it again here. But yes, of course, the licensing laws, right, that are out there, state of Connecticut, the licensing types that DCP enforces, those are statewide licenses. Those are enforced statewide. And so I understand your frustration that you may have some bad actors at the local level, right? You see that, you can give DCP a call. We can send out investigators. We can go over those things. But yeah, the statewide licensing laws are in effect statewide. I know this has been brought up, right, Larry, at the last board meeting.
Yeah.
So I don't want it to distract from the purpose of this special meeting, right? Because this is a special meeting. We have to stick to the agenda items. It's not supposed to be, you know, divergent into this other area. So we should really stick to what this meeting is about, I think, today. But I'll defer to the chairman on that. But
I understand, Mr. Grabowski, I understand that. But the point of it is to hold this license and to follow this criteria, right? I need to understand that the municipality is supposed to follow state law. And if they don't require the state law, then we will call DCP to investigate it, or legal counsel, or whomever, because what's happening is the people that are violating your state law and not holding these licenses are able to walk away. So my biggest concern is that if a violator that does not pull a permit to do the work inside a cabinet, inside a UL cabinet that was manufactured by myself and my certification team here, and goes out to a job and is mounted, and 5 years later, somebody comes in, puts their hands on it and rewires it or retrofits it, it has my name on it. That person never was licensed or pulled a permit because he didn't hold a state license. And now it comes back to me because my name and my label is on that sign. So I just need to understand that the state is going to enforce the municipal building officials, that they have to follow the state law. That's all I'm looking for, because I am 100% with the board as a business owner to keep my staff safe, my UL certification correct and following that law, as well as the property owners and my clients, and making sure that anybody out there who's moonlighting or doing this other work has a license. That's all. That's all we're looking for.
right, and I would say when you see those instances arise, as when you contact DCP, they will perform an investigation, and that'll go through the necessary steps, right? And yeah, we will enforce the statewide laws as far as licenses are concerned. So, I mean, if it comes to a head with a local building department on that at some point in the process of an investigation, then that'll happen. But that'll be DCP's role in what you're bringing up here. Is we will perform an investigation, we will look into it and bring the necessary action.
But the action is against whom? The building official?
The licensee.
Why the licensee? It's the building.
That is what DCP has control over, the licensees. So I mean,
understand that.
as far as you know, the local building officials, I'd have to look into, you would have to do research and potentially consult with an attorney yourself to see what steps you might want to take on that end of things. I mean, there may be something down the road, but again, we're getting pretty far away from the conversation here. I know this has been brought up many times, but I would say you could also contact the Attorney General's office to get into that issue further. And I see that Inspector Janita Hamill has her hand raised here as well.
Paul, I might just add that the municipal inspectors are actually although locally they're under the local jurisdiction, the state building official is the authority having jurisdiction in the state of Connecticut. And if it's a non-electrical, non-licensing issue, then as I've stated before in meetings, that's where it would end up going as a complaint. If it's licensing or somebody hasn't been licensed or somebody hasn't had a permit, then that should be a complaint to DCP, and then we would follow it up. And I think that's pretty clear. And I really don't want to belabor that subject much longer, Pete, not to cut you off, but as Attorney Grabowski did say, you know, this is a special meeting, and I see where you can connect the two, but we're trying to establish requirements to obtain a C8 license, okay, from a person. So I'd like to stay close to that. And let me. I just see that Janita Hamill has her hand up from the Department of Consumer Protection as well. So Janita, you want to make a comment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just to reiterate what you just said, and the local building officials are under the jurisdiction of the state building official. Department of Consumer Protection does not have any jurisdiction over the building officials, what they do, how they do it, when they do it. That is totally for permitting purposes, and that is under the state building official's office. As Attorney Paul Grabowski just said, and you said, any complaints or inspections that this agency does, consumer protection, occupational licensing, enforcement, will be for the licensing of the individuals performing the work or who perform the work without a license. But at no time can Department of Consumer Protection go and overrule or tell a building official what to do. That's all through the state building official's office, because they're all licensed and go through continuing education from the state building official's office, and that's for permitting and code installation. And the state building official's office has always stated, when we go for a building official continuing education classes at the same time, that licensing is for consumer protection, permitting and code inspection is for the towns. And unfortunately, that's how it is. And if the gentleman has an issue with a particular town or city, he's going to need to bring that to the attention of the state building official's office, because DCP cannot tell them what to do, how to do it, or when to do it, unfortunately.
Okay, I understand that. Thank you very much for that. The only thing is that when the building official goes to the job, meets with a violator that does not have a license, licensing board, aerial lift training, all of the things that we are required to do, and he lets them continue to do electrical work, that obviously breaks the state law. So we will take that up, and we have, and we've hired legal counsel to address that. And I thank you again. We're all on the same side, because we are held to the criteria. And again, we want our people, our clients, our property owners safe. So we thank you and all your time. And we look forward to supporting the team on this. Definitely. Thank you.
Okay, Peter, do we have any comments relative to the proposal that we have, the draft that we have out right now?
Yeah, the only question I have, and again, in question is that is an E1 or E2 allowed to install a sign since they don't have crane training, bucket training, and all of these other requirements? And I think that
Peter, there's some assumptions you're making in there. To begin with, first off, an E1 or an E2 is an unlimited contractor or an unlimited journey person. And as such, yes, the answer to your question, they are able to do sign work. And they do go through aerial training with lifts and so forth. They also place large equipment on various large buildings, whether it might be a generator up on a roof, and they typically hire crane people to do that. But they understand that that's a responsibility of theirs and they treat it accordingly. So the long and short answer is yes, E1s, E2s can do all the sign work.
great, thank you.
I see Rob Kennedy has his hand up and has had it up. I hope your arm's not too tired.
Funny. Rob Kennedy, Lawrence Sign Group. Yeah, again, I thank the board for their time on this, and I'm pretty excited that we're doing this. I'll focus a little bit on the OSHA for you. I think Russ hit a lot of the points. I was in that first wave. I got my license in 2005. Took my test, studied, did everything, that we were supposed to do at that time. And I've always seen, I know Russ has written letters for guys. We have written letters for other people to get their license. And it's been a tough, what do you need to do to get your license? What do I do with my personal team? And what do I tell other sign companies that are trying to do it right? And I think everything you have is pretty good. I would say that, we're more towards the 1926 as construction. I see where the general industry is in the shop, but I mean, if everyone's doing it right by OSHA, we're all certified crane operators now. That law went into effect a while ago, got postponed for a little bit. We're all aerial bucket truck trained. We're all rigging trained. So if you're doing everything right, you have OSHA 10, OSHA 30, and it's all construction. And all my team has general industry and construction to go with the UL in the shop. So I think, I know you can't, I heard that we can't mandate OSHA 30. I can, as my private company, mandate it for job sites, but as a license, can we mandate both general industry OSHA 10 and construction OSHA 10? Is that a possibility for this license?
I would ultimately get the advice of our board's attorney on whether we can or cannot mandate certain things. To me, I think we could if it's done properly, whether that means through the legislative process or whether it's done through board requirements. But I think, Rob, you just said it. You actually, by sounds of it, support both OSHA 10 and OSHA 30, and see where 1926 is almost a little bit more heavily applicable than 1910, but 1910 also applies.
Yeah, I would say, more if we're calling this a sign installation license, then I would say the 1926 is where, any of our criteria should land. We do have the part that we build the sign in the shop and we follow UL, and, it's up to each shop what they want to do with their employees, whether, you feel that they need OSHA 10 general industry, or, I know a lot of our guys, all our shops that are here, a guy could come in, build a sign tomorrow and go help the installation team the next day. So I know that like everyone has a main job, but for, in the industry, everyone's kind of done everything. So in the sense, the construction side is more where I would lean towards if we're going to be calling it a sign installation license.
Okay.
And then I would say, Russ has done a great job over the years past running this class. And I know COVID hit us. With my team, prior to COVID and even still working with Russ, I had joined the IEC on my own. And I've worked with them, to continue our education for our guys. And I would hope to say that I think if we get this lined up in the 180 hours or whatever it is, but between Tungus and hopefully if I could work with IEC, we would have a place where people can actually go and learn this stuff. I mean, this has been a goal for as long as I've been in the industry, that to have a place for people to learn before they come in, or while they're in with you, another area besides just in your shop or just on the road.
Okay. All right. Okay, thanks, Rob. I appreciate that information and your comments. And again, that's one of the reasons why we have, three people from the sign industry representing here, because whatever we do here does affect them directly. And we want to make sure they're involved in some of the process. Russ, you still have your hand up. Is that just because, or you have something else? Yeah, go ahead, Russ.
Thank you, Larry. So just a couple other thoughts as we wrap up. With respect to the hour requirement, I do understand that the federal minimum is 144, as Todd indicated, I believe. So what I might ask the board to do is, if we can work on getting the instruction that is, and you'll allow us, the industry, to provide the additional training categories that we feel would be appropriate for the work that we do. Why don't we design the program and then see, what the content is, and then set the hours around that. I mean, we know it's a minimum of 144, if it's 180, 200, whatever the thing is, but I think that the industry, we appreciate the opportunity to work with the board and put together the training program. And as I said earlier, I think that Victor and Tungus might be an important role because they're doing a good job with work in partnership with us at the moment. That might be helpful. And the last comment that I have is just for the benefit of the board. So when the license was created in 2004, 2005, one of the things that Rich Hobart allowed us to do, we put an industry group together to actually write the questions for the exam. Okay. We did a refresher on those questions a number of years ago. But I will speak for myself. I would welcome an opportunity, and I think that my industry peers would agree, if we got together and kind of do a question refresh based on LEDs and everything that we're currently working with. I'm getting ready to send a couple of my guys in to take the exam, and I think it would be important if we're revamping this whole process and putting the apprenticeship that we do a question review. And update it to current technology in certain areas, and I would appreciate the opportunity to continue that process as we've done for the last 15 or 16 years. So,
yeah, thanks, Russ. And that's something some of us on the board have spoken about across the board, across all licenses, and that is to regroup with based on the new codes, and bring all the testing data up to date. We have not started that procedure yet. And typically, anyone who teaches any prep classes or anything of that nature is excluded from that process, because we don't want to see the questions leaked out in any way, shape, or form for the test. But no, thank you, and we will do that. Rob Kennedy, I see your hand is back up.
Yeah, sorry about that. There are two parts. One, I agree with Russ. when looking at that test, I know we revamped it. Correct me the date, but it could be 2010, 2011, I think is when it was looked at and maybe put in place in the teens. But I do feel the questions are somewhat dated. And the other part I wanted to discuss was I missed that NEC code section 8 is actually extremely important to our business. We are, all of us are dealing with LED message boards, but we're also dealing with RGB lighting with controls. I know that our team has, gone into lighting buildings now with RGB lighting that, they've taken it from, electricians, E1s, E2s still do it, but we've worked with, at Cigna and a couple other places where we have full control systems that we're now wiring and running and engineering, through an electrical engineer. So I do believe that those questions would need to, somewhat start to come in as this, every industry changes. So our industry is obviously changing. And then there's one thing that, Peter mentioned is neon is coming back, and that is true. So I've seen it for, all the companies in Connecticut and across the country. It's kind of on its way back a little bit. So I think we need to keep it in there. I know we tend to put it to the side, and I know my new crews, like, they have no clue about neon. I'm teaching them, as we go. So it's something that we should keep in this, if that's possible.
Okay. Thank you, Rob. Just for Russ, for your own information, I just had to search back through some of my emails here relative to Vic Mitchell from Tunxus, okay, who's a very good and great contributed over the years to a lot of programs that affect us. That I did get an email. I did get an email from him on the let's see, when was this? Back in earlier in actually mid-June, and it said, "Hello, I am retired. I am gone. It is finished. Goodbye, Vic Mitchell, the last director of business and industry services." I just thought I'd throw that in there because it's kind of comical the way he did it, and he's been such a great guy, and he's helped so much. And I think we all who've worked with him know how to get him anyway. So he may be retired, but I don't think he's out of reach for us. Rob, do you still have your hand up? You set for now? Okay,
Sorry, mistake.
No problem. Pete, your hand is up. Is that a carryover?
Just one more question. We have several applicants in to be certified or to take the test. Do you know when those will be approved so that we can get those scheduled?
Well, I have no idea based on, I mean, we approve as they go, and if you want that information, you'd have to contact, you could email Karen at DCP.
We have.
And again, that's not part of our, Pete, honestly, it's not part of our agenda. And I'm just trying to keep this to about an hour and a half at the most. So send those names over and she can tell you what the status is probably. Or directly to somebody.
We have asked. It's been 2 months now. We have asked. We've not received a reply back. Thank you.
Okay.
They'll be reviewed on July 26th.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
You're welcome.
Great.
So going forward here, and as I said, we want to put this into effect come September 1st, okay? And get it moving. One of my first questions is, does everybody feel comfortable with OJT of being 2,000 hours? Well, particularly when that's all the person is doing. They're doing limited work. They're doing all sign work. They're not unlike an E1 or E2 where they're doing all types of work. Does that sound reasonable to everybody on the board and in the industry?
It does, Larry.
Thanks, where'd you go? Peter, there you go. I don't hear anybody objecting to that, so, okay. As far as the related instruction, I agree with what somebody said that, again, this was a starting point. Whether it's 144 hours, whether it's 188, whether it's 582, whatever. I think we need to look at the content of the related instruction and back into the hours. Okay. With that being said, and I really sincerely mean this, I appreciate the industry input from the people on the panel here today. And I see where they're very interested in being part of the development of this qualification. I would like to ask that we reschedule another meeting for this, okay? That the industry partners here, as well as the board, okay, fine tune some of these requirements. There's some suggestions about chapter 5, chapter 8. I've heard a lot of comments on chapter 8 that was overlooked here, as well as the chapter 9 tables. Of course, the discussion on OSHA 1910, 1926, where it's applicable. And ask that maybe individually everybody put together some thoughts on these areas and what their recommendation is, including even reference materials, because there may be better reference materials out there. Signs of, it's easy when you look at a sign to minimize what's involved with a sign, okay? But it's very important, obviously, that they're built right. UL helps with that situation. We're kind of looking at the install side of it, that the install is correct. People have been well trained on all the safety aspects, whether it's rigging, cranes, aerial trucks, even confined spaces. I mean, there was a situation not that long ago, a few years back, where there was an out-of-state sign contractor, sign person, working, if I'm not mistaken, it was Rocky Hill or Weathersfield, above a ceiling, okay? My understanding is the sign was not properly locked out. And unfortunately, that person got electrocuted, okay? It could have been because it was properly identified. We don't know. I don't know the exact situations. I know of another situation recently down in New London, where a sign was being installed and the building caught fire after just being renovated and due to be open in a couple of weeks. So we can't take this stuff lightly, and none of us sitting here today, I think, do. So just give a thought for a minute, because I see Todd's got his hand up and I want to get his input too, and anybody else here. But give some thought for a few minutes to a date that we can review this again with some recommendations, formalize it into a final packet, hopefully, and then get to the board for a final vote. Todd?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just on the apprenticeship side, but it appears to be the board's intent and purpose to get the opportunity for someone to be eligible for C8 September 1st. For apprenticeship purposes, that timeline will not work due to the fact that you have not done you've done a lot of work, but two things have not been established. A related instruction criteria and also authorization for those entities to operate. Basically, someone wants to be an apprentice, they have to go to school. We all know this. So therefore, the education has to be approved and places to go prior to the implementation of an apprenticeship program. The on-the-job training is a piece of cake. But if you were to say, okay, as of September 1st, let's get an apprenticeship program for C8, which is the pathway for, for licensure in the state of Connecticut, we could all agree. Start September 1st, but no one has the availability to go to school until February or March. By the time everybody gets everything organized, that's discombobulated just as a process. But I also cannot authorize, and it's unfortunate that I cannot authorize any registered apprenticeship until industry says this is the related instruction and here's a few places you can go if you're a registered apprentice in the state of Connecticut, including all of the private institutions, online for that matter, and also I don't know if you're having a conversation with CTEX, the evening adult program, if they want to be a provider as well. You need places for folks to go, Larry. It's plain and simple. Absent that from day one, because it's a 1-year apprenticeship program, I will absolutely do everything in my ability to get this done as fast as you can. But with that being said, I just want to state that it's very, very important to get that done ASAP. There's no question about that. And Russ, I want to thank you again for your comments. And I just been taking some notes on this. This is an opportunity for someone that wants to go in an occupation outside of just being an electrician. There's no question about that. The proposal for a C8 license gives validity and rigor and dignifies the trade through certification, proper mentoring through the apprenticeship program, giving someone the dignity of their craft, not only having a journey person bestow that onto somebody that's new, but somebody that's like, oh, what do I get for this license, this sign occupation I am? It dignifies them for that license. So the work that's gone in has been wonderful work. This will be a snap piece of cake. And also, Larry, as a state apprenticeship council member, you do have to bring this before the state apprenticeship council, which we can call for an emergency meeting on there. That's not a problem. But I just want to point out a couple of things of process. A, get the curriculum done in a couple of places for these folks to go. B, get a state apprenticeship council meeting to get it just on the books and approved and out the door. And then we could go from there and start having my staff registering apprentices on behalf of those organizations that currently have that are proceeding this. So just a couple of things, but look, I'm the guy with the scissors for the bureaucracy, but it's governance, and I have to remind you of that. So thank you.
Well, thanks, Todd. I appreciate your comments, and I don't disagree with you relative to the industry having the product available for people to reach out to and register for it and obtain. One of the things was to obviously put a date on this. So, and as you know, with everything, unless we put dates on things, they kind of drag on. So I want to keep this in a fast-paced motion. I want to get it as soon as possible, obviously. But at the same time, if we may have to extend that date, but if we end up extending it, at least we're not. Well, if we extend it, we're going to be extending it to a date that we know everybody can live with from an offering standpoint, and also the work that you have to do in DOL and State Apprenticeship Council to approve such a thing. So good comments, and thank you.
One quick question. When is current E's and C's and T's and L's? When is their current renewal cycle? Is that October?
Yes, same thing. Yeah. Yeah, all electricals are the same.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Pete, I think your hand's back up again. Yes.
Yeah, just a quick question. Everyone is mentioning UL. So the question is again, it's a requirement, correct? By state code, that if a sign is manufactured, it meets at minimum the UL and it's labeled with a UL, labeled by a UL certified facility.
Russ, you want to answer that? I see your hand went up.
Yeah, I think if we, if in section 600, the NEC requires that the product be manufactured by an approved facility, UL being one of those. It could be ETL. I mean, there are other, so UL is a brand. It's not, it's not, they're all, there are other approved facilities like ETL, for example, that offer the same type of an, accreditation process for the products that we build.
No, I understand it. I just want to make sure that, again, it goes back to the state of Connecticut recognizing that it's a requirement. And then if the municipality has to follow that state law, that we're all on the page. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Pete. Thanks for your comment, Russ, too. Anybody else got any comments that's out there? I'll just go by the people on screen here. Janita. Shamika.
No, Mr. Chairman. I look forward to reviewing and getting to the next meeting.
Okay, thank you, Janita.
Thank you,
Shamika.
Mr. Chairman.
No, nothing from me, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Paul.
It's great work, good discussion, and this is going to be very helpful once it's all finalized. So thank you all.
Okay. And Kaylin.
All set. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, I'd like to, let's set a date if we can. Like I said, I don't want to get too far out. Where this information can be brought back into from everybody into us. Looks like we're going to be sometime in. Let's see. We have a August 10th. What does August 10th look like for people on their calendars?
I'm good.
Todd, you're good?
Yep.
Anybody have a problem with August 10th? Let's put it that way. It's going to be easier.
Yes.
Karen?
Yeah, there's
Karen, you're not
another,
supposed to have the problem.
there's another board meeting on that day.
What time is that board meeting?
It's at 9.
Would we be able to do something in the afternoon? Oh, Paul's got a problem, I see.
I have goes and standards in the afternoon.
Okay.
We're going to have to go to the week of the 15th. Did you want to throw out a date that following week?
I'm sorry, Karen, say it again.
Did you want to throw out a date for the following week, the week of August 15th?
I'd rather make it closer, shorter, to be honest with you, but I don't know how that works with the calendars. How about the 9th of August? I'm just trying to give us a couple of weeks in between.
I'm good in the morning.
Chris Brown's up, I got thumbs up all over there, okay. Paul? Yeah, you're good. Rich? August 9th, okay with you? And Peter?
Yes, thank you.
August
Peter,
9th, August 9th will work for me. I have an 11 o'clock, but anytime around that.
Peter Jennings?
That will work for me, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So is there anybody that objects to August 9th? Say so now. Anybody? Okay. Can we do it on 9? You've got on 11 o'clock, Mr. Bird? Karen, is it the 9th open morning and afternoon?
I'll have to check. We have, as you know, a lot of different levels of meetings. We have 2 other staff members that are scheduling meetings.
Okay.
So I'll just have to double check. If that doesn't work, the 11th, would everybody be okay with the 11th? If the 9th does not work?
Yeah, she rest is good.
Thumbs up? Yeah, thumbs up, yeah.
Yeah, everybody's shaking their head, yeah.
Okay.
Peter, Jenny,
Yes, that'll work for me, Mr. Chair.
okay. All right, why don't we do this, Karen? And Todd,
Yeah, the 9th and the 11th in the morning works for me.
okay. All
All
right,
right, I'll check on that then.
let's do this. If Karen, if you don't mind, if you just check those dates further, and then you can talk to me or just pick one of them in the morning,
Okay,
9 o'clock.
all right.
And then everybody, that'll be the date of the meeting. I'd like to ask maybe that possibly by the 4th, if that's possible, for everybody to have any recommendations to get those in, so that we all have a little bit of time to look at them even before the meeting on the 9th or 11th.
Larry, if I gotta ask, be part of those emails and conversations, please, so I can make sure that we're good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, Todd should be CC'd on all these.
Okay.
Actually, anybody that's on the call today.
Okay.
Okay, so August 4th, we see the input and distribution to everybody, and then it gives us some time to look at it and digest it a little bit before the 9th. That'll help some time. Okay. Okay. All right, well, procedurally, I have to ask this, is there, anybody have any other comments or concerns today about this that they need to raise? Okay.
Larry, just one little fly in the ointment. For the private schools that are not subject to regulation by the Office of Higher Education, they have to, is my understanding, they might have to inquire if they have to go through an approval process. But for those that are not, you know, that's just something to think about, Larry. That's all.
Say that again, Todd. I was writing something down. Like,
for those private schools that are regulated by the Office of Higher Education to offer educational opportunities, it's my understanding they have to be authorized by the Office of Higher Education. So I know, like, particular IECs, I know the IBEW does not, because they don't charge tuition or that matter. Some of those schools, the for-profit entities, I believe, need to seek or inquire with the Office of Higher Education to offer those classes. So I just wanted to bring that as a point of order, or a point of information more than anything else.
I got you. Okay. Yep. Well. Okay. If nobody has anything else to contribute here today, give some thoughts to our discussions today from everybody. Put some notes together. Get them out to us by August 4th. If you would just, I assume we can send those to you, Karen?
Yes. Yep.
Central.
Yep.
Point, and then she will get those back out. So you can get them in before August 4th. That's fine too. Okay.
Okay, and I'll send out a save the date email within a day or two to confirm whether we are going to go with the 9th or the 11th or otherwise. Hopefully not otherwise. Hopefully the 9th or the 11th.
Okay. Yep, that'd be great.
Okay.
All right. Well, again, I want to thank everybody for joining us today, putting some input into it. And as Attorney Grabowski indicated, he believes this is going to be a big help toward getting another little thing off our checklist over at DCP of trying to clean up some things. So thank you very much. With that, we can adjourn the meeting at whatever time is it?
10:33.
10:33. Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Have a good weekend.